Hi guys, 4.5 years after Great Britain left the single market, Keir Starmer has decided I'm going to blame Nigel Farage and Brexit for the damage done to the economy. 4.5 years later. So this point was raised by a pro-Brexit supporter on GB News, and to a certain extent he's right, but not completely. Have a listen.
It's absurd. I mean, clearly, they're worried that Nigel Farage is ahead in the polls. They realise that, previous tactics of calling him racist haven't worked, calling him fascist hasn't worked. So perhaps let's blame him for the state of the economy. It doesn't really make any sense at all. If you actually look at how the economy has changed since Brexit, actually, the sad thing is that not very much has changed. Very little has changed since we left the EU. That should be people's frustration. There hasn't been any change in the growth rate or anything like that. These problems are very deep-seated, and we have a political class that doesn't want to grapple with them. And blaming Farage just shows that Starmer doesn't have any answers of his own.
Okay, so this guy is completely wrong. Nothing has really changed. Tell that to businesses that were trying to export after Great Britain left the single market. Remember, Northern Ireland is a separate case because Northern Ireland is part of the single market when it comes to goods. Also, businesses who are trying to sell to Northern Ireland from Great Britain. Talk to them and ask them how things have not changed. This guy's living on another planet. But he's from Spiked Online, so they're pro-Brexit, so of course they're going to defend it. Talk to businesses that are trying to bring workers in from abroad, who used to rely on a workforce from the European Union and can't do that anymore. Who are struggling to find the workers they need. Who've had to put up prices. Because either they have to pay higher wages for people coming in, or they have to pay higher prices because goods have to be imported, and it's more expensive now to import. It's more difficult. And as I've mentioned in other videos on this channel, European customers or suppliers are avoiding Great Britain because of the consequences of Brexit, because it's more difficult to sell goods into Great Britain or to import goods from Great Britain. It's too much of a hassle, and instead they're going to find customers or suppliers in the European Union or in the single market. And Northern Ireland is benefiting from this. Even Rishi Sunak, the former Prime Minister, said Northern Ireland has the best of both worlds, something that Great Britain can't have. But let's get back to the main point here. Is this a good approach? Is it a sound approach from Keir Starmer? Yes, but it's too frigging late. He should have been banging this drum back in 2020 or 2021 to be more precise. When Great Britain left the single market, he should have said, look at all this damage that's been done to businesses. Why? Because of Brexit. Because of Nigel Farage and Boris Johnson, hand in hand delivering this. Because remember, Boris Johnson and Farage sat down and they hammered out a deal where Farage would stand down candidates for the Brexit party in order to help the Tories get over the line in 2019. So when they implemented their Brexit, because of Boris Johnson and Nigel Farage, they should have been held culpable. They should have been held responsible for that. But instead, what did Labour do? They said nothing because they were afraid that it upset the red wall. They're, we better not talk about Brexit anymore. It's, people voted to make themselves poorer, but we better not highlight that point. Now, at the last minute, well, not last minute, but now, after 4.5 years, Keir Starmer has decided what I'm going to do is I'm going to attack Nigel Farage for destroying the economy with his Brexit. It just comes across as desperate. He's right. We know that Brexit has damaged the UK economy, both GB and Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland is doing a little bit better than other parts of the UK, but Brexit has been a disaster. There are no benefits as a result of Brexit, unless you're going to point to some trade arrangement with Donald Trump. But on the other side of the scale, there's a huge amount of damage. Yes, you found 50p down the back of the sofa, but you've seen your house burn down. This has been really damaging. There was an opportunity, and us on the Remain side have been banging our heads against the wall over the last 4.5 years, asking, why is Labour not highlighting this? Why are they not calling out Brexit as a disaster? It's too late now at this stage. Because, yes, it's damaging the economy. But if you're coming out and saying, it's Nigel Farage's fault because he's doing well in the polls, then it just comes across as desperate. And it's actually going to undermine any real challenge that you can put up to Farage. Because Farage will say, they're just doing it because they're desperate. were doing well in the polls. They should have been mentioning this, should have been talking about this back in 2021. But for some reason, this was not happening. And I think, unfortunately, the impact this is going to have now is minimal. If Keir Starmer and Labour had been mentioning this a year ago, it could have had an impact. You know, we inherited a terrible economy from the Conservatives, and because of Brexit, it's more difficult for businesses to expand. It's more difficult for businesses to access the workers they need. It's more complicated and expensive to import and export. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and undo that damage of Brexit and mention the B word. But they were afraid to mention the B word. Once again, afraid of the red wall. Even though they had won the election, even though they have a massive majority, still this fear until now of Brexit. But once again, all Farage has to do is turn around and say, oh, you're attacking me because I'm doing well in the polls. If they had done this a year ago, Farage would have no response. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think, and I'll see you in the next video.